Hey everyone, welcome to my draft analysis of the Global Pokemon Battle Association, or GPBA for short. Emphasis on the P because we're not GBA, I'm not doing a Let's Go League because fuck that noise. Anyways, so if you're wondering what this is, or what this analysis is going to entail, what I'm going to do is go over the mons I drafted one by one, by draft order, so I can just show my draft for this season while explaining my thought process while the draft is going on. Now, before I do that, I want to formally introduce myself because this is a routine that I usually do now. The draft analysis video usually indicates the very start of my league run, and usually newcomers would, kind of hop on to see my not low quality content. Anyways, so with that out of the way, hello! You may refer to me as Damage. I've only been playing draft leagues for about a year, and throughout my year-long career, I haven't participated in that many leagues. In fact, you could just see my whole fucking record in the bottom right, by the way. Mostly because throughout the year, I've only been doing like 1-3 leagues at a time. Although, pardon me. Although that's probably gonna change, because even though GPBA is my third league that I'm currently on the moment, I am gonna be in 4 leagues I'm gonna be in 4 leagues at a time around 2 to 3 weeks from now. So spoiler alert, expect another draft analysis video soon. Now, although my draft league career is rather short, I will say that in all the leagues that I participated at the very start, I've never missed out on playoffs ever. Every single league that I just start in, I've always made the top cut. Now, of course, this may change because like in CDL, I am in another Majors division, formerly called the Elites League, so yeah, that's fun. But hey, who knows? Perhaps your coach of the Vermont Big Teenies can come out on top like I always do. Hopefully. Oh, and by the way, that thing on the top right, it's just something I found in Google. But let's just say it's my logo, alright? Alright. Now on to the draft. Now for this particular draft, I wasn't particularly too lucky with my pick order compared to the Cascade Draft League, but I still got a decent position nonetheless. So compared to being the second pick in CDL, in GPBA Season 5, I was actually picked number 9 out of 12 coaches in a snake draft. So what this meant is that although the first mon I would get isn't necessarily the greatest, I could still get some synergies down fairly easily since I'm decently close to the wheel. That being said, I was a little bit surprised that I was able to get this mon where I was, because I usually consider this particular mon to go like pick 5 to 7, I suppose, in the first round. I got Zygarde. Now, Zygarde is one of those mons that I really wanted to use in the draft format because, well, for one, I never drafted before, obviously. But although, I also thought that it would be pretty interesting to try out, the very mon that recently got banned from OU, even though I personally disagree with the ban. So yeah, about Zygarde. Here's what you need to know about Zygarde. 1,000 arrows. Okay, on to the next mon. Okay, but yeah. Zygarde, compared to other offensive ground types, Zygarde has one of the best spammable moves in the fucking game, which even precedes fucking Earthquake, which, like, prior to Gen 7, you could say that Earthquake was one of the best offensive moves in the fucking game because it's like it was a base 100 power move with, little to no drawback. But the thing is, with Earthquake and the ground type in general, there were answers to the move Earthquake. You had flying type mons that were immune to the ability. You had mons that had access to the ability Levitate, who could switch into Earthquake easily. But the thing is, Zygarde says fuck you to all that. The thing is with Zygarde and 1,000 Arrows, even though 1,000 Arrows is a less powerful move, it's like Zygarde is that kind of mon that says fuck, that just says fuck flying types, fuck levitators, fuck the very nature of the type chart and what it fucking stands for, and no, screw it. I'm still hitting you. Screw it. I'm still hitting your ass. Like, oh, god damn it. Like Zygarde's move 1000 arrow is just fucking ridiculous. Like, Zygarde can potentially sweep on its own with only that fucking move, because it is fucking stupid design. Like, I won't say Zygarde is broken, but the move 1000 arrows is just awfully designed in my opinion. But yeah, okay, enough about the move. Back to Zygarde. So, what I like about Zygarde is that if I were to, compare Zygarde and what it does, the best comparison I would maybe give is probably Snorlax, what I like about Snorlax is that Snorlax is really nice for its roll compression. With its tried and true Curse-Lax set, Snorlax can potentially compress the rolls as a defensive pivot, setup sweeper, and wall breaker all on its own. And Zygarde kind of does that because Zygarde actually has fantastic defensive stats. Like, I'm pretty sure he has over base 100 HP. His defense stat is around 120 something, and his SPDF is around 90 something. I'm not particularly too sure. And Zygarde has access to two really good setup options in Coil and Dragon Dance. So that's actually pretty nice. What I also like Zygarde is that not only does it have the stats to potentially be a defensive pivot, but it also has the utility to kind of serve as that defensive pivot role. Like, it has utility in Glare. Of course, it can toxic things, everything. Although everything can toxic something whenever it can. If I recall correctly, it could also trap mons with 1000 waves, so it could potentially be a trapper. Still wondering how I can make that work, but yeah, that's a thing. And I forgot to do the icons here, but okay. Zygarde in this team is my Z captain. And I really like Zygarde as the Z captain here just because it opens up a few more options. Specifically, options that could hit opposing fairy types with Z Iron Tail, or maybe it could bring like a special Zygarde with a Z Sludge Wave if I so wish. That's a possibility. And it also has pretty good options against bulky grasses that usually switch into Zygarde. For example, say my opponent sends out a Tangrowth to switch into Zygarde, I go for Z Outrage, boom, it's dead. Something like that. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Zygarde. So, alright. After I got Zygarde, I did get sniped a little bit when the draft was going around the wheel, which kind of forced me to change the direction I wanted to go with my draft plan. What I wanted to do originally was, since Zygarde went to me at pick number 9, what I wanted to do is, after I got Zygarde, I wanted to go for the, let's just say the Hex core, if you will. I wanted to get Jirachi and Togekiss to go along with Zygarde. Just because I did mention before that Zygarde could, spread that good yellow color, nice paralysis with Glare. And I just thought para-hexing shit to death with Jirachi and Togekiss would be kind of funny. So once Jirachi was taken, I thought, you know what? Everyone and their goddamn mother is gonna get a fucking bulky grass type so they don't get 6-0'd by Zygarde. So let's just get a good fucking fire type. So what I wanted to get first was Heatran, because it complemented Zygarde's strengths and weaknesses pretty well. It would have also provided some nice rocks for the team. But the dude who got Jirachi also got Heatran on the wheel, because reasons. So with that out of the way, I was actually conflicted between two fire types. One of them was Victini. Not only because it would be funny if I drafted my mascot for the first time, but also because it was just insane as a wall breaker, which could have worked well with Zygarde. But instead I decided to go for another fire type because I thought this mon worked well with my draft budget-wise. And even though I usually see this mon in Tier 2 nowadays, I still see some people advocating it for Tier 1. And well, do I think it's Tier 1? Let's find out. I got Infernape. So, the reason why I decided to go for Infernape or Victini, again, it's cheaper. But I also thought Infernape would be nice for threatening out mons that could potentially threaten Zygarde with an Ice Shard. Say for example, Mamoswine or Weavile. And Infernape does have a slightly better speed tier than Victini. Albeit it's a little bit more frail. And I will say, I mean, I suppose maybe I'll think about this maybe in retrospect, but perhaps the lack of bulk might suck. So yeah, about Infernape itself. So Infernape can go has the potential to go physical or special in its offense. It's pretty nice for pairing out with U-turn. It also has some pretty good coverage on its own. Like, of course, its firefighting stabs are already good in its own. Like, firefighting is just really hard to switch into. It's got access to Edgequake, it's got Gunk Shot, 2 out of the 3 elemental punches, Fire Punch and Thunder Punch. Oh, actually, okay, I should say one of the... Actually, maybe I could use Fire Punch in some games, who knows. It also has access to Grass Knot, if I recall correctly. What's also nice about Infernape is that Infernape has access to priority that's either physical or special, Vacuum Wave or Mach Punch, which is pretty nice. Oh yeah, what's also nice about the punching moves, Mach Punch, Thunder Punch, and Fire Punch is that it's boosted by its ability Iron Fist, which is pretty cool. What's also nice about Infernape is that not only does he have access to priority that goes both offensive spectrums, but he also has access to setup can be both physical or special in Swords Dance and Nasty Plot. And that kind of setup, those kind of setup options work well with Z crystals, which, yeah, by the way, not only did I make Zygarde the Z Captain, but I also made Infernape the Z Captain, which I know if you watch my CDL draft league, this might be strange, so I'm gonna have to explain things a bit. So the GPBA has different Z Captain rules. So for one, it's not limited to tiers. The rules of this league is that out of the 11 mons that I draft, not 12, 11, god damn it, I can only have 2 Z Captains on my team as always, but one of them is only limited to offensive Z moves. So basically just Z moves that do damage. Basically, like say for example, just can only use Devastating Drake, Acid Downpour, Corkscrew Crash, blah blah blah. And then the second Z Captain is a Z All Captain. Basically, said Zmon can use those offensive Z moves plus some Z status moves. So I don't know. Say for example, I don't really know what. So let's just say for example, I draft Xurkitree and I make that my Z All Captain. Then Xurkitree would be allowed to use Z Hypnosis. That's what I'm trying to get at. So for this league, I made Zygarde 50% the Z Offensive Captain and Z Infernape the Z All Captain, just because Infernape's got... I know Infernape has some utility in its disposal. I'm not entirely sure of yet, but hey, I'll think of something as I go on with the fucking league. What else is there? Oh yeah. Not only does Infernape can be not only can Infernape be a good all-out attacker, setup sweeper, and I suppose wall breaker with like a band or spec set, it's also nice as a suicide lead with like Stealth Rock, Taunt, Endeavor, and Mach Punch. Nice Gen 4 set. And also, strangely enough, Infernape also has some access to a few utility options that can make it a niche defensive pivot. For example, it has access to Will-O-Wisp and Slack Off, which is pretty interesting. Am I gonna bring a bulky Infernape to any of my games? Who the fuck knows, because it's fucking frail as shit. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Infernape. Like, what's nice about Infernape is that Infernape does have options. Like, it's like Infernape for the most part is just basically a glass cannon, but how Infernape does have a lot of ways to blow the opponent back, which I think is pretty nice. But hey, we'll see how it goes. We'll see if Infernape is tier 1 worthy or not. So, pardon me, just a little water break. So after I got Infernape, I thought the amount of offense that I have at the very moment, right now, is sufficient. So I thought maybe I should get some utility now. Like, all I have right now is just a potential defensive pivot in Zygarde that can't really be a defensive pivot depending on the matchup, and a rocker that can't really get rocks 100% of the time in every matchup. Not only that, but the team doesn't have any defoggers at all, so let's get a defogger. I got Togekiss next. So I did mention before that I want to get the hack score, but hey, I still wanted a little bit of speed control because at the very moment, my fastest mon is Infernape, so I thought, hey, you know, just spreading the yellow color and just hacking things to death might be a little bit fun. And I did mention before that Togekiss is a good defogger. It's also a pretty good cleric in as Heal Bell, and potentially Wish. It does have access to Wish, and maybe I could bring it Wish Passer Togekiss to my games. Maybe. Let's see. Oh yeah, what's also nice about Togekiss is that it could potentially be a pretty good stall breaker. Like, I'm pretty sure the set that's usually seen in UU is like Nasty Plot, Heal Bell, Roost, and Air Slash, which can be cool against more passive teams. What's also nice about Togekiss is that it has access to moves such as Flamethrower and Aura Sphere, which is nice. And yeah, I think that's all I want to say about Togekiss. Of course, I could run it Scarf. Yeah, I think that's it. So after I got Togekiss, I wanted another utility mon, just because I thought I still needed a consistent hazard setter, because again, at the moment I still have Infernape, and I wanted another defogger. I also wanted to finish up my Dragon Fairy Steel Core as soon as possible, since there was a possibility that the Steel type that I would choose, or that I chose, could be taken from me once the draft came all the way back. So the Steel type I had in mind was Klefki. Now what's nice about Togekiss and Klefki in this draft is that even though they're both fairies, they don't really stack the same weaknesses. Like, Klefki can actually switch into Steel and Poison, because yeah, it takes neutral from Steel and it's immune to Poison. What's also nice about Klefki is that it can differentiate itself from Togekiss, because it is I would say a pretty reliable spike stacker, which is nice for offensive mons such as Zygarde and Infernape. Again, it's also nice for speed control, because priority Thunder Waves is pretty nice. What's also nice about Klefki defensively is that I would say Steel Fairy is a pretty good defensive typing as is, and Klefki does have access to priority Magnet Rise, which is pretty nice, if Klefki is immune to ground type moves with its Steel Fairy typing, it can actually wall a decent amount of mons. Like, I remember back in UU, I was able to wall mons such as Crocodile especially, that was a big one. If the Hydreigon didn't have access to Flamethrower or instead teched in Earth Power, that was also nice. I'm trying to remember what Magnemize Klefki was for. Whatever. But yeah, because Klefki has a nice defensive typing, it does give me some really good resistances such as Dark, Dragon, Fairy, and Ice, which is pretty nice for my current lineup at the moment. And like I said before, Klefki's a nice defogger. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Klefki. So yeah, after I got Togekiss, I decided to now head over to the Tier 3 section and try to get some valuable mons from Tier 3. Now since we're in round 5 of the draft was getting to the point where 2 of the Tier 3s that I had in mind would be highly contested. And unfortunately, one of the Tier 3s that I had in mind, Jolteon, got sniped for me when the draft was coming back to me. Now, although that did suck somewhat because my draft at this point was lacking some speed because, again, I keep saying it, my speed was capped. My speed is still only capped at Infernape at only 108. But despite that, I wanted to. I thought I was gonna. I decided that I was gonna hold out on my fast electric type because I thought getting another utility mon would be nice. And looking what the other coaches had, or specifically the coaches that were like picks 10 to 12, coaches that were gonna go back around me, I was confident that those coaches wasn't gonna get the contested mon that I had in my mind when the draft went back. So the utility mon that I had in mind was Tentacruel. Now what I like about Tentacruel here is that it has access to Toxic Spikes and Rapid Spin, which was really nice. Well, Toxic Spikes especially I thought was really nice for this team, because I thought Toxic Spikes worked really well with Zygarde, because that poison damage was really good for mons that tried to switch in 2000 arrows, and mons that usually soak up Toxic Spikes are generally weak to Zygarde, because yeah, ground move, poison types that suck in Toxic Spikes, yeah, that's a thing. And I thought getting a form of hazard removal that isn't punished by contrary / defiant / competitive was nice, because yeah, rapid spin doesn't affect that and some removes hazards. Oh yeah, and I thought rapid spin was also nice for my team because at the moment it's like I've got a really good, or rather I should say I've got a team that's kind of like, I got a team that's basically stacking hazards, and yeah, having a spinner is just nice for maintaining those hazards. Aside from, now when it comes to Tentacruel, aside from it being a bulky water that just spams Scalds and just does hazard stuff, it also has some pretty neat options such as knockoff. It also has the opportunity to prevent setup and haze. It also has acid spray, which is pretty interesting. Oh yeah, and also speaking of Toxic Spikes, Tentacruel itself is a grounded poison, so soaking up those Toxic Spikes is pretty nice. And what's also nice about Tentacruel is that if there ever comes a matchup where I'm not really interested in Toxic Spikes, Tentacruel itself is a poison type, and fun fact about poison types that use the move Toxic, they don't miss. Ever. Like even if a mon uses Fly or like Shadow Force, like let's just say, you know, my opponent does that and they still use Toxic, it still lands, which is pretty funny. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So yeah. Okay, after I got Tentacruel, I thought it was time for me to get that highly contested tier 3 that I was talking about. Because I I suppose I should say, I guess I should say, in my opinion, it's pretty contested in Tier 3, possibly being at least top 10 Tier 3s in draft format. And I thought this mon would come back safely to me, because looking at the 3 coaches that were drafting on the roundabout, those coaches already had a grass type, and I wanted a grass type that could hit pretty hard while still functioning as a bulky pivot if the situation calls for it. I got Shaman. So what I like about Shaman in general is that its stats are pretty good overall, base 100 across the board, which is expected of a Pixie Legendary. And what I like about this is that it can be run offensive or bulky. Wait. And what I like, or rather, and I think Shaman can do, or rather, I think Shaman can be both a offensive threat and be a pretty good bulky pivot pretty well. Like, Shaman does have access to the exclusive move Sea Flare, which is pretty nice for breaking some teams with pretty common split drops, provided that the move lands. Shaman can also be pretty good offensively, as it has pretty good coverage, such as Air Slash, Psychic, and Earth Power, which is pretty nice. What I also like about Shaman is that hit and its axe, it can run a sub-seed set pretty well because of its speed. Shaman can also be a pretty good cleric because it has the move of Aromatherapy. Speaking of curing statuses, it's a pretty nice status absorber because it has the ability Natural Cure. And Shaman does have reliable recovery in Synthesis, as well as, like, I suppose one thing I can do, because it has Natural Cure, I can run Rest on it. So it's like, if Shaman goes down to like 20% HP, I could Rest and then, yeah, switch out because something Natural Cure, which is pretty nice. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Shaman. So yeah, basically, yeah, case in point, it could be offensive and pretty bulky as well, because yeah, reliable recovery. So after I got Shaman, I was looking at my team, and I thought to myself, even though I have some decent hazard setting potential in Tentacruel, Clefty, and Infernic, I thought I still needed a rocker, and a good one, because I don't want to rely on Infernic for rocks. So with it, and I did see that Miltank was still on the table, so you know what? Fuck it. Let's get Miltank. So, funny enough, I think with this, Miltank might just be my most drafted mon in my draft league career, because I think out of like the 8 or so leagues that I've done, I forget, I'm pretty sure like this is the 4th time that I've drafted Miltank. Because like, I'm pretty sure I drafted it like in my first draft league season, and I think I drafted it in. Okay, wait, pardon me. I know I drafted it in MLP. I drafted it here, and then I think I drafted it in. I think I drafted it in Angel as well. All right. So about Miltank, I'd have to say, actually, yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think this is the 4th time that I've drafted Miltank. But yeah, although this is the first time you're gonna see me draft Miltank in a draft league video, it might be a little bit boring if I draft, Miltank again, but hey, you know what? Miltank's reliable. She gets the job done, so why not? Let's pick her up again. So about Miltank. Miltank is a pretty reliable normal type rocker. In fact, I will say Miltank might just be the most reliable normal type rocker in draft format. Of course, when it comes to normal type rockers, you got the fat blobs in like Chansey and Blissey. But the thing about those mons is that even though they're really good rockers, in draft format, those mons are actually pretty passive and pretty one note, I would say. And other normal type rockers are like Bibarel, Wigglytuff, Kecleon, and I think Dunsparce. So yeah, when you think about those kind of mons, I would say Miltank might be the best normal type rocker in draft format. So when it comes to Miltank, she actually has pretty good defensive stats, like 95 HP, 105 physical defense, and the SPDF is a little bit subpar and around 75. But hey, there are situations in which I could invest Miltank into SPDF because its physical defense is pretty solid by itself. Also, Miltank has 3 pretty solid abilities in Thick Fat, Sap Stepper, and Scrappy. For the most part, I'll probably only use the first 2, Thick Fat and Sap Stepper, although Scrappy is a possibility. What also comes to Miltank is that even though its attack stat isn't the best, it has some pretty good coverage, which is, when you really think about it, good coverage is to be expected of fucking normal types. So when it comes to Miltank, she actually has all the elemental punches, Earthquake, Iron Head, Zen Headbutt, and I think Stone Edge, although I might be wrong. Iron Head and Zen Headbutt, I think it gets those moves. So, oh yeah, and I did say before that its attack stat isn't the best, but what's nice about Miltank is that it does have access to Curse. So, like, a Curse set with Scrappy, and like, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, it could also be a Cleric and Heal Bell. And yeah, it has reliable recovery in Milk Drink. I forgot to mention that. So yeah, like, a mono Body Slam Scrappy set with like Curse, Milk Drink, and Heal Bell is a possibility. That's a thing. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say. So after I got Miltank, I realized that I am really lacking in speed. Like, I'm past halfway into the draft, and I am really lacking in speed. Like, Infernape is my fastest mon at this point, and that's a problem. So I thought, looking at what's on the table right now, I thought now would be a good time to get my Jolteon replacement. So here's my Jolteon replacement. I got Raichu. So what's nice about Raichu is that overall, or like, Raichu does give me, a good, or I guess a decent electric type to hit Bulky Waters with, because I don't want to rely on only Shaman for that. It also gives me a new speed cap at 110, and it also forms a little Volturn core between Infernape and Raichu, which is pretty nice for mons like Zygarde and Shaman to come in safely, as well as some other good offensive mons that I'll show soon. What's also about Raichu is that it gives me an electric immunity in Lightning Rod. And what's also nice about Raichu is that it can be a potential setup sweeper with Nasty Plot. Now, what does kind of suck about Raichu, I did mention before that what kind of sucks about, Jolteon being sniped for me is that I feel that Jolteon is that kind of mon that doesn't really need a Z Crystal to do work, but Raichu, I feel, kind of does, especially since it has Nasty Plot and only has base 90 special attack. But hey, I mean, and I was deciding between like either Raichu or Zygarde 50% to be the Z Captain. It was a difficult choice to make, I will admit, and who knows, the choice of making Zygarde the Z Captain instead of Raichu might bite me in the ass later on. But hey, maybe I can make it work. It still has Nasty Plot, and Life Orb is a thing. So, yeah. What else is there? I'm pretty sure Raichu's physical and special attack stat are the same, so I can go physical with like Fake Out, E-Speed, Knockoff, and Volt Tackle. I know that that's a thing. So yeah, I think that's Raichu. So after I got Raichu, I knew that at this point it still wasn't enough speed, because 110 is definitely not a good speed cap. So I got more speed. So yeah, I got Sneasel. What's nice about Sneasel is that it gives me a good Dark type, or rather just gives me a dark type, so it gives me a nice psychic immunity. And it's a pretty strong dark type that's pretty good at hitting bulky psychics pretty well. And I mean, I did mention before when I drafted Weavile back in CDL, but there's not really much that Sneasel does in this game except, hit shit pretty hard. And Dark Ice is pretty hard to switch into. And it does have, good coverage for mons that could potentially switch into its stabs. Like low kick for steals, poison jab for fairies, stuff like that. But yeah, Sneasel doesn't really do, I mean, Sneasel isn't a utility. Or rather, I should say, Sneasel only does one thing, it does well, but that's fine, because Sneasel provided what I wanted for the team. Fast mon that can hit shit pretty hard. So, even though I got Sneasel for speed, I thought this still wasn't good enough. 115 is not a good speed cap, in my opinion, when it comes to drafts. I mean, unless, unless it was like a bulky team, but yeah, I didn't want to cap out at 115. So, looking at, all the available mons that had pretty high speed caps, I decided to try out a mon, or I decided to get a mon that I haven't really tried out before in draft format, regular Alakazam. And emphasis on regular because I have drafted Mega Alakazam before in my very first league, but yeah, it's not in video, so whatever. Yeah, I drafted regular Alakazam. So what's nice about Alakazam is that oh my, pardon me. It gives me a new speed cap and 120, and it does give me a new type in my draft, which is Psychic. So yeah, similar to Sneasel, Alakazam is pretty much a glass cannon. Just, it's pretty frail and hits shit pretty hard. But what's nice about Alakazam is that I suppose I could say it's more guaranteed to put in work because it has a really good ability in Magic Guard. So it's like, what's nice about Magic Guard is that, it's immune to basically indirect damage. So it's like, I could slap a Life Orb in this thing. I could hit shit pretty hard and won't get the weak call. I could run like a Focus Sash set on it, so it's like it never takes damage from hazards. It can always get 2 hits off, which is pretty cool. What's also nice about Alakazam is that it has decent coverage that goes well with its I think 135 base special attack. Like, of course, it's got Psychic Stab, it's got Focus Blast, Shadow Ball, Dazzling Gleam. It also has access to Energy Ball and Charge Beam, which is interesting. Maybe I can make that work somehow. So yeah, Alakazam, Fastmon, hit shit pretty hard. I like it. Now after I got Alakazam, you would think I would be satisfied with 120 speed, but in my opinion, that still wasn't enough. Now, if you look closely, at the draft, at the points section of my draft list thing, you can see that I'm slightly over my points capped with my free mons. Therefore, I would need a slightly lower tiered mega in order to make my draft legal. And if you know what kind of megas are in the lower tiers, then you would know that I want even more speed. And this is my very speedy option right here. I got Mega Aerodactyl as the last mon. So this gives me an even higher speed cap, and a really good one at that, at 150. And while there is a big speed gap between Mega Aero and Alakazam, not many mons reach that range between 120 and 150, so I think that's fine anyways. And what I really like about Mega Aerodactyl here is that, or rather, what I really like about mons that have really absurd speed stats, in my opinion, is that in draft format, where you're not necessarily guaranteed to get, really fast mons, it actually gives you a lot of liberty in your EV spreads. So it's like, when it comes to mons that have like, you know, I guess I should just say a base 120 speed cap. It's like, if I bring Aerodactyl to those matchups, I'm pretty sure, you know, I could run Adamant guaranteed in those games. Which kind of makes me think. It's like, I think I'm pretty sure I could say in the majority of the games that I'll bring Aerodactyl, it's guaranteed that I'll bring Adamant and invest in pretty good amount of HP, because yeah, I won't have to invest much into speed. And what's also nice, you know, about having the liberty to distribute EVs as I wish because of its high speed, it does give me the potential to run bulky Aerodactyl sets. Because what's nice about Mega Aerodactyl here is that when it comes to its defensive stat line, while it's not really bulky, I wouldn't say it's exactly frail either. Like, it has like 80 HP, 85 defense, and 95 special defense, which, in my opinion, is okay. Like, it's no Infernape, for example, which, because if I recall correctly, like, Infernape has like 76 HP and then 70 something in its defenses. Mega Aerodactyl is slightly bulkier than that, so yeah, I think that's fine. Of course, its typing says otherwise. Rock Flying isn't necessarily the best defensive typing, but hey, maybe in some matchups, bulky Aerodactyl can put in some work, who knows? So, about Mega Aerodactyl. What I like about Mega Aerodactyl here is that it's one of the rare mons in the game that can both learn Stealth Rock or Defog, aka have a form of hazard setting and removal in one mon, which is nice. It's also, I actually looked this up, it's actually the second fastest reliable taunter in the game, outside of Deoxys Speed, which is pretty nice. It also has decent coverage that's boosted by its ability Tough Claws. For example, the Elemental Fangs, Aqua Tail, Crunch, and Iron Head. Unfortunately, some of his moves don't take advantage of Tough Claws or aren't really that strong enough. For example, Earthquake and Stab Stone Edge don't make contacts, therefore they're not boosted by Tough Claws. And unfortunately, its best flying stab is Aerial Ace. Kinda sucks that it doesn't have Brave Bird, but hey, I mean, maybe that would be too broken. Maybe it would be nice for Aerodactyl to get like a good mid-ground move, maybe base 90. But okay, too much of a tangent. Oh yeah, what's also nice about Aerodactyl is that it does have access to Hone Claws, which is pretty nice since it can potentially be a good setup sweeper at its own. You know, it can boost its already good attack in like 135 base attack, more accurate stone edges, blah blah blah. So yeah, I think with that's my whole draft. So yeah, you can see this draft all over here. So to recap, the mons I got were Zygarde, Infernape, Togekiss, Klefki, Tentacruel, Shaman, Miltank, Raichu, Sneasel, Alakazam, and Mega Aerodactyl. So when it comes to my draft, honestly, in my opinion, I think out of all the drafts, like, of all the teams that I have drafted so far, I think this might be one of my best drafts if I can play it right. Let me explain on that. So, first, I'll talk about some things that I like about this team. For one, this team is fast, very fast, and yeah, I guess that could be explicitly noted for the last few months that I drafted, like Alakazam and Mega Arrow. Like, fun fact, I actually did a little bit of research on this. after the draft. The average base speed of this draft is 104, which is kind of insane. The fact that this team's average speed kind of surpasses, like, you know, the common base speed that you usually see in 100, because usually a lot of mons are around that 100 mark. And the fastest draft that I could think of, like in my career, was like some tier 3 and below draft, you know, that I kind of stumbled upon. Well, I mean, I didn't get to play in the league, but I did see a team that had mons like Electrode and Ninjask, and the average base speed of that team was only like 99.75 or something like that. Like, let's just say it was around 99. So yeah, case in point, this team is fast. Very fast. And I like that. Now, what does kind of suck about, you know, this team's absurd speed is that Trick Room is the thing, and that's kind of concerning. So yeah, I would have to be pretty aware of that. Maybe tech some protects on some of my mons, because yeah, that might be a definite possibility. Oh yeah. And so I did mention about this team. I did say that this might be a really good team if I play it right. And that's because when it comes to this team's archetype, I suppose I could say I'm slightly unfamiliar with it in draft format. This is basically an offensive team, because when you really look at, you know, my defensive options, although they're not really the greatest. Like I said before, Shaman can be a bulky pivot if the magic calls for it. Of course, Togekiss, Klefki, Tentacruel, and Miltank are pretty decent defensive pivots, and I did say that Zygarde can have the potential to be a defensive pivot. But yeah, I will say that compared to other drafts that I have drafted before, its sustainability isn't really the best. And I think part of that is because I don't have a Wish Passer on this team, unfortunately, which kind of sucks. Let's see, what else was there? Wait, did I not? Okay. We're good. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah. Another reason why I feel that this team is kind of like more on the lines of offense rather than what I usually draft, which is bulky offense, is that even though this team does have some consistent hazard setting options like Klefki Spikes, Tentacruel's Toxic Spikes, I will say that some of the Stealth Rock options I have are a little bit inconsistent. Like I do have Mega Arrow. It's a really nice mon, you know, for just getting up, you know, rocks up almost guaranteed, unless it's like priority. There's like priority taunt. Although I will say that again, Mega Arrow isn't exactly frail, but it's not exactly bulky unless I invest into it, or if I take in Roost, you know, for reliable recovery. Also, Infernape, Mon's very frail, so it's like I'm not gonna get up rocks unless you know, I'm in a good enough position where I can threaten rocks with Infernape and get free rocks by himself. Basically, what I'm saying is that when it comes to my rocking options, Miltank is my only consistent rocking option, which kind of sucks. So what this basically means is that I'm gonna have to play a little bit differently when it comes to this team. And it's not like I have zero experience with offensive teams. Although I can't really show it. I mean, maybe I could show it somehow in this video. But in the past, that I've actually drafted. I actually drafted a hyper offense team in a tier 3 and below league that had like Rabombi, Webs, Flygon, Magnezone, Jinx, Servine, blah 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 blah. Basically, what I'm saying is, this isn't my first rodeo when it comes to offensive teams. But yeah, that being said, yeah, that being said, I had to have a different mindset than what I usually do in my previous matches. So yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, I believe this concludes my GPBA Season 5 Elites Draft Analysis. Hopefully, in about a week or so, I can provide a team builder and live commentary video for this league as well as the other leagues. And yeah, I think that's it. Later.